So great. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning. My name is Tammy Lamison. I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I'm so honored to be on this morning with Emily Hall and Aubrey Lamison, my daughter and daughter-in-law. And we have Carey Miller, nurse practitioner, and she is amazing, all things hormones. And she has completely changed my life. And I trust my life with Carey when it comes to my health and hormones. And I love that she loves to do things conservatively, naturally. And when it came to this topic of postpartum and hormones and what's happening in our bodies, she was so willing to jump on and be able to answer questions and talk to you all. And she is also in the same mindset of things nutritionally as well. So I would love to introduce you to Carey. I'm going to let her share a little bit about herself. And she's been in this industry now. She's started out in nursing and wanted to dive into this hormone health. And she's been doing this now for 11 years, Carey, is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, 11 years. And like I said, myself and my husband and now several friends, and I will shout it from the rooftops because of the changes I've seen in myself. Now my sisters and now my mom's coming. I mean, I can't keep it to myself. And that is how I feel about most things when I know that it makes that big of a difference. So Carey, I'm going to pass it on over to you. I know we shared some questions with you about some things about postpartum, what is happening. And I know I mentioned it just a minute ago that Michelle, Aubrey's mom, my friend-in-law, my friend I've known for over 20 years, that now my son's mother-in-law, we wish we would have known these things when we were going through postpartum. We didn't know. We just had to deal with it. And now there are answers, and with nutrition and with certain supplementation. So Carey, I'm going to hand it over to you because these girls had these wonderful women had some incredible questions, and I know you have some amazing answers.
Hi guys. So yes, I've been a nurse practitioner for almost 11 years, and I focus now in hormones, mostly postmenopausal, but I have perimenopausal and I have women that struggle with polycystic ovarian syndrome, which digs into the 20-year-olds, the 30-year-olds that are really just struggling with infertility. So whenever she mentioned this in the office of, would you have any highlights or anything you'd like to add? And I was like, well, I'm not doing anything Saturday, so I'll just join in. I kind of invited myself whenever I heard the hot topic. So, but I have been postpartum. I have 2 kids. Mine are 5 and 8. And so I know that postpartum journey, and it can be very challenging. And so, whenever you look at what is going on postpartum, it is really where your hormones are on a high whenever you're pregnant. And so you go from being, a huge level of progesterone, a huge level of estradiol. And then whenever you deliver, all your progesterone goes away. And so whenever your progesterone plummets, that's whenever your body starts to feel changes, but you're on this high of adrenaline rush of you just had a baby, you have no sleep, you're absolutely exhausted, and you really just don't know what's going on. But then you're like feeling you're not yourself. And so you're like, oh, it's just fine. It's just fine. It's just the fluid shifts. But then you're like, wait a minute, this is lasting a little longer than I anticipated. And so the balancing of hormones can go on for about 3 to 6 months of getting your hormones regulated. And so, it starts the minute that the baby is born. And so that's where it's so important to really go in and talk to your doctor about postpartum health. Because postpartum health, I feel like sometimes it's just kind of washed to the corner because everybody's focus is the baby. And the baby is so important, don't get me wrong, but the baby has their own nurse, and then you have a nurse, and then immediately they unhook you from the monitor, they unhook you from everything, and they're like, just drink water and ice, and here's you some ice chips, and then you're good to go. But you're like, whew, I'm not feeling right. This is not right. So advocate for yourself postpartum is so important, because I feel like in my experience personally, in the hospital, they, focus on the baby so much. And then I'm just like, can I get a new pad? Like, it's just, so many things are going on with your body that you like even feel guilty asking, because the prize in the room is now babe. So, looking at that and just understanding the science behind what is going on in your body. And so that's really what we wanted to come on and kind of discuss from the medical standpoint. What is shifting in your body? And I know some of y'all have already had children, so you've gone through that as well. I don't know if y'all had the similar experience, but just kind of understanding what is going on from the shifts of your hormones.
Yeah, and I asked them if they had any questions too that they want to put in the chat. That would be, so good as well. So I think that, some of them, one of the things that they had asked, when they were talking, like after having that baby, touching on, postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, so those are things I know. I mean, Michelle, I'm sure you could speak on that as well. We didn't hear about that.
No, I mean, it's really just so helpful that there's an openness and a willingness to just not only talk about it, but acknowledge even yourself that it is going on. Like, it's okay to not be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Motherhood is really the start of that journey. I mean, there's so many things,
Right.
but I think what I love about a community like this and having practitioners who can really step in and speak truth is, you go back to even your teenage days and, you're starting your cycle and you're going through things and you just feel like you cannot grasp your own hormones. You cannot grasp your own feelings. And I know that made me feel less than, and we shouldn't feel less than. There are biological reasons that things happen, and there are tools that we can use to help support us and to move through that with a little less confusion and a lot less self-doubt.
Absolutely. And whenever you talk about postpartum depression, that is the plummet of your progesterone. And so, whenever your progesterone levels drop, your estrogen levels will start to creep up. And so, that imbalance of your hormones is what is causing the depression and the anxiety and the fluctuation of your emotions. So, not only is your adrenaline pumping from just having your child and the lack of sleep and having to deal with the stress of breastfeeding and all the things that comes with having a new baby, or if this is your second baby and learning how to deal with two, you're also dealing with internally, metabolically, your hormones are at an imbalance. And unfortunately, no one gives progesterone postpartum. And so that's where progesterone is such an important hormone, and it's bioidentical. So it's natural, plant-based. And so you can take progesterone, but I know, especially with the Juice Plus community, we want to be most natural. And so that's where you don't want to always just throw a pill at it. You want to make sure, okay, well, how can I get progesterone naturally? And so there's different fruits and vegetables, ones that I found that are really natural to boost your natural supply of your progesterone are things like pumpkin seeds and beans and broccoli and leafy greens and kale and cabbage, bananas and seafood and Brussels sprouts and avocados. But if you look at the ingredients in your Juice Plus supplements, they're in there. So I was like, just double up on your Juice Plus and you'll be good, because I didn't have Juice Plus whenever I was postpartum. And so I'm like, whew, that's nice. You already have it in a capsule or a gummy form. And so you can take more because it's nutrition. So, looking at the natural ways of rebalancing your hormones for postpartum depression is going to be so important. And just knowing postpartum depression is okay. It is natural. However, you can manage it, and just know that there is help out there. Because that's the hardest thing, is as a woman and a growing woman, and now you're a mother, there's like this hierarchy of, you have to be strong, you have to do it all. This is what my mom did. She just did everything. And just know that you can ask for help, and there is people going through the same thing. And so that's what's so important with talking to your friends, talking to your provider, and just, talking to your spouse. That goes a long way, of just open communication, so that somebody knows what you're going through, might have gone through it themselves, but they don't really talk about it. So that's the most important part with the feelings of emotional imbalance, is it's a hormone shift. And if you're breastfeeding, it's a whole different hormone shift. So, if you choose to breastfeed, that can be very stressful in itself, of, am I feeding the baby enough? Are they getting enough? Am I producing enough? Oh, this hurts. I need to go pump. And so there's so much stress that comes in from breastfeeding. I breastfed both of my children, but they didn't want it after 3 to 6 months. One of them wanted it 3 months, one of them wanted 6 months. And so I pumped. And so I was plugged into a wall every 3 to 4 hours, all day long, 24 hours a day. And so now they have these new devices that just pop into the bra. I'm like, where was that? Because I needed that, because I definitely was hooked to a wall for a really long time. But breastfeeding, there was one question that Emily had sent me, that how do you regulate your period while breastfeeding? And breastfeeding, you might not know, you may know, but it really takes on, the balancing of your hormones. And so your breastfeeding on your period will become regular, usually about 6 months to 10 months. And that all depends on how you're breastfeeding. And so if you're breastfeeding and your baby starts sleeping through the night, then your period might come sooner, because you're not feeding during the middle of the night. And so during the middle of the night, that's when your prolactin is released. And so that's where your milk production is. Your brain says, I need to overproduce. We are feeding through the night. I need to keep up. But as your baby starts to sleep through the night, then your prolactin becomes, oh, well, we're not going to feed for 8 hours, so I can kind of take a break on production. And so they will notice that your breast milk might deplete once your baby starts sleeping through the night. And you're like, oh, my milk supply is down. And some kids start sleeping through the night at 3 months. And so your breast milk might fade depending on where you're at. And whenever you don't feed for an extended period of time, that will tell your brain to start regulating your hormones. And then you'll start having a period again. And so when you have a period again, that's whenever your milk supply will naturally decrease. And so the milk supply is so important for, there's supplementation that you can take whenever you start to have a period and you're breastfeeding. Calcium and magnesium are two that are huge for milk production. Staying hydrated is huge, because we're so busy that we just forget to drink. And so having a Stanley cup or a roommate cup around your corner that you're always sipping on. And ice water is so good. You want to make sure that you're staying hydrated, and, exercise. Exercise is probably the last thing you really want to do whenever you're exhausted from having a baby. But exercise alone will help regulate your hormones. And it also is an outs for you. So taking that 30 minutes, 15 minutes to exercise, it's 30 minutes of alone time, which is really nice whenever you're having a baby cling to you all the time. You have siblings cling to you, and then husband comes around and you're like, oh, I'm exhausted. I just want my time. But take that time to move your body, and then it'll regulate your hormones a little bit better. And it sounds so silly, but all the science says that your hormones will become regulated and having great nutrition. And so that's where Juice Plus comes into play again. Like I keep referencing to that back, but everything is nutrition to regulate your hormones and your breastfeeding. And so that's where it's so important to nutrients are good for your body. And then exercising. And then the supplements that you need to regulate with your period and breastfeeding is calcium and magnesium. And then that'll help replenish your natural supply. And then if your baby does stop feeding during the middle of the night, one thing that you can do to kind of trick your body into still producing, or to not allow you to have a period come back so soon, is you can pump after your baby's last feeding. So if babe goes to bed 7:38, then you pump after you feed them. So you're going to express all the leftover milk. So then that tells your body to, hey, I'm empty, I need to produce some. So then your body will produce some, and then you pump before you go to bed. So if you go to bed 10, 11, whatever time you go to bed, you pump again. And so then that tells your body to still produce that prolactin. So then you can have that production of your milk again. So, that's one way that you can naturally get your milk supply up, and your body will become regulated on your hormones while you're breastfeeding, because that's a whole another gamut of how are my hormones doing. Is breastfeeding throws a little loop in there, and when baby starts to transition to sleeping through the night, you're just excited to get 6 hours of sleep. The last thing you want to do is stay up and pump. So that's where you still have to focus on regulating that milk production, but also getting enough sleep. So that's really important too. And then an iron-rich diet is huge, because that's where you'll get a replenishment of your milk, is iron-rich diet. And naturally, women just don't go to red meat. We don't go to the really, like a steak. But if you can have kale and spinach and hummus and mushrooms and red meat if you can, and all those good leafy greens, those are not only going to regulate your hormones and your progesterone production, but they're also going to help with your milk supply. And just know that you can get pregnant immediately after babe. So you always want to use a backup. Even if you're breastfeeding and you're not having a full-blown period, your hormones can start ovulating again without you really realizing. And so you always want to use a backup method unless you want to have babes back to back. So that's kind of that big long-winded question about breastfeeding. But I saw some questions pop up in the chat box. So let me see if I can get over to that. Did y'all have any questions about that?
That was so good. I know one of the questions, let me see, I think, and you may have even answered that one. I know Aubrey asked, let's see, that what you recommended to balance the hormones during pregnancy and after a baby. I mean, I know you mentioned calcium, magnesium, and iron-rich diet. That was so. One of the questions given, which was also really good, about an IUD experience, that, and I know you and I did a hormone live, and that was kind of mentioned on there, but now this is really, really good. That was more about, menopausal, postmenopausal, or premenopausal, but this is really good for these women too, with that being, IUD. What would be a good recommendation? Because those, that's really hard. They're wanting to do things naturally. They're wanting to make sure they make the best decision, and they're so full of hormones, but what can they choose that's going to be good for them and not harm them?
So the IUDs definitely release hormones into the body. They're a small amount of hormones, but they are releasing hormones to not allow you to have ovulation. Everyone usually will like an IUD because it's not a pill every day, and you don't have to worry about missing a pill. And so there's that compliance issue, but some patients don't do well with IUDs. And so if it's not working for you, I feel like most kickback is just give it time. But if you're not feeling right, I would say get it removed. I wouldn't say give it time. If you've had it in for 3 months, 6 months, and it's just not feeling right, you're not doing right with the hormones. And so that's where, again, advocating for yourself, because that is so important. If you're just not feeling right, talk to your provider about that, because IUDs are not for everyone. And so that's where it's so important, because they are releasing hormones. They have progestin in them, and progestin is not progesterone, but it is a very small amount of progestin, which is similar to a birth control pill. So in your younger age groups, that's totally safe. And there's literature saying there's no harm in those, but there is literature later on with progestin and risk of breast cancer. So we definitely don't want you to have an IUD, in my opinion, long term. The most natural way would be to go on some sort of, protection, barrier protection, or tracking your ovulation cycle, which can become challenging because not everyone feels when they ovulate. I think that was a question that you guys had too, is not everyone knows when you're ovulating. And so looking at a calendar, an app, a fertility app is so important, because whenever you're trying to conceive or you're wanting to prevent conception, then an app for tracking is so important. And so you will naturally ovulate, you should naturally ovulate between 13 and 18 days after the first day of your period. So usually everyone ovulates around 14, 15, but it's the first day you start your period. So I think that's where some people get their math off, because everyone thinks that it's the last day of your period, but your cycle starts on your first day of spotting. So that's whenever you would go into your app and you would actually track when you started your period. And then these apps now have calendars, and it'll tell you when you're supposed to be ovulating. And so during that time, then you would want to focus on your body of what's changing. Some patients do temperatures every morning. As soon as you wake up, you can take your temperature. Your body will naturally spike like a degree or a half degree on the days that you're ovulating. Your mucosal will change. It'll be slippery and slick like a egg white. That's a sign that you're ovulating. You'll have some breast tenderness. You'll have some cramping, some tinges in your stomach. That's a sign of ovulation. And so that entire week is going to be a prime week of you could potentially get pregnant. And it's not just the day that you're ovulating. You could have sex 2 to 3 days before you ovulate, and the swimmers are still in swimming, and then the egg will come into contact. And then you can ovulate, and 3 to 4 days later, 5 days later, they can come into contact. So you really have a whole window there that you're going to use barrier protection. And so that's where it's so important to kind of come into tune with your body. But those apps, I feel like, make it a lot easier. And again, Tammy, y'all didn't have that. Michelle, you didn't have the ease of an app, but now there's apps out there that helps you track it. And so that's where, you can look at what's going on, and you'll be surprised at little tidbits you find about your body that you're like, oh, wow, I really do know when I'm ovulating. But we really don't sit down and really focus on our vaginal discharge. So that's where it's like, okay, well, if you start paying attention to those things, and then you start paying attention to what your body's doing, that 14 to 17 days after your first day of your period should help. And then everybody wants to know, I can't get pregnant. Why can I not get pregnant? Nothing's happening. Like, you want to have intercourse like every 2 days. You don't want to do it every day. You don't want to do it every day, twice a day, because you have to allow him to replenish. And so that's a big part of it. Takes two. And so your egg has to happen, but your egg is only viable for about 24 to 48 hours. But if you have sex 2 days before, and then you have the day of, and then 2 days after, then there's a big window there that something can meet. And so that's where everyone thinks that, the more the better. That's where you want to make sure he replenishes to allow that conception to actually happen.
That's good. Well, Leanne had asked, and I'm not familiar with this at all, the hormone IUD, while we're talking about IUDs, and the copper IUD.
Yes.
Who knows?
The copper does not have any hormones, so everybody thinks that would be a better choice because they don't have any hormones. But there is a lot of complaints with the copper IUDs because they're copper and they can become uncomfortable. The hormonal IUDs are plastic. They're very flimsy. They're flexible. Copper is very stiff. And so some patients will feel the copper IUD versus not feeling the copper IUD.
Okay. So Leanne, if that answers, but the copper IUD still
it's still a barrier. It still works. It's just there's more complaints with it as far as the comfort issue. And then you're having a metal in your body, but it's copper. So it's have to kind of weigh the odds of hormones, copper which would you rather do? And then there's always birth control pills that you could take as well. But just try to figure out, everyone is different. Some people have a great experience with IUDs, but your best friend will not. And so that's where you just have to listen to what's best for your body.
Right, right. Cassidy has a question here about hormones. Her doctor has said, hormones, let's see, her hormones are messed up. It may be causing weight gain. She's 9 weeks postpartum and had lost baby weight in the first part, but now feels, the weight gain. So hormones, what's going on? What can she do? Definitely, here at the beginning, wants to make sure, she's on the right track.
Sure. So that's where you would want to be giving yourself the exercise that you need to regulate those hormones, staying hydrated, and the nutrition aspect of it. Going back with that iron-rich diet and those progesterone, strong vitamins and supplements that we had mentioned. And I can type those in the chat box or I can send it out in a message of they're like pumpkin seeds and the beans and the broccoli and the leafy greens, bananas, Brussels sprouts, avocados. All your good fruits and vegetables are so important for regulation. Vitamin D, I don't think we've really mentioned the importance of vitamin D. I know that was in your list, Emily. Is that the vitamin D is so important to encourage the serotonin and the dopamine receptors of the body, but it also helps with your immune health. And so whenever you're so around a baby that you don't want to get any sickness at all, the immune health from vitamin D is so important. And no one really mentions the postpartum hair loss either. And vitamin D helps with that. So the vitamin D and hair loss helps replenish. Iron helps replenish your hair so much. And also getting enough nutrition is so important for hair replenishment. But iron and vitamin D are huge because at about 3 to 6 months after delivering, babe, your hair will just fall out in the handfuls. And it's just an unspoken truth of pregnancy that no one talks about, but it can come back. But if you can kind of combat it with being on those nutrients before through nutrition and vitamins, that's important. I always recommend about 5,000 to 10,000 IUs daily of vitamin D. And the typical provider will only recommend 5,000 to 10,000 per week. And so your levels will never get elevated and optimal at that dose. So I always encourage 5,000 to 10,000, depending on where your levels are per day. And that's a vitamin you would want to take in the morning. And then taking the magnesium at night will help absorb the vitamin D, but it also helps with calming and giving you that dopamine and that serotonin that you really need to allow you to rest easier. And magnesium also helps with restless leg and depressed moods. So magnesium is a little hidden gem that you really don't know about, but it can help with a lot of things. It can regulate your hormones, and it also helps with sleep. And that's an ingredient usually like calm, CALM. That's usually a number one ingredient in that calm factor is magnesium. But the other things that are important with the chemicals of the brain and the regulation of the brain is like flaxseed and omega-3s. Those produce melatonin, and those will also allow healthy sleep habits, because you will definitely be stressed following, babe. And that's when your cortisol levels are going to go so high, especially 3 months after. And if you're fighting a high cortisol level, then you're going to be more hungry, and you're going to just definitely not know how to balance yourself there. And so, and the only fix is sleep and less stress, which is very hard as a new mom. And so that's where, there's a new product coming out, ashwagandha, and I don't know the name of the product, Tammy, but the ashwagandha is a natural way to lower your cortisol levels. And so the ashwagandha is it's a botanical herb. It's been around for years, but it is definitely regulating the cortisol levels in your body as well. So the omegas and the flaxseed oil and ashwagandha are one things. And then just looking at how many calories you're consuming, because sometimes we get so busy that we don't fuel our bodies enough. And so that's where it's so important whenever you're looking at baby weight one, are you breastfeeding? Because you have to increase your calories significantly when you're breastfeeding. But then you also want to burn your calories if you're just sitting around feeding a baby, sitting around holding a baby. You have to look at how much are you moving, and so that's where that 30 minutes of exercise is huge. So and you know, tracking that in another app if you can, of how many calories in are you getting, how many calories out are you getting, are you breastfeeding, throw that in there. And then just, you know, trying to stay away from a whole grain diet and just mainly focusing on vegetables and protein and a serving of fruit a day, because everyone thinks that oatmeal and grains and bread and bagels and toast and potatoes and all those things are good. However, they're really high in carbs. And so one thing that does is it spikes your insulin level. And so whenever your insulin is high, then you will naturally crave sugar and you will not be able to burn fat for energy. You will actually make fat for fat. And so that's where it's so important to look at what are you consuming and trying your best to limit those carbohydrates and just getting your carbs from your vegetables and your fruits. Insulin resistance is another thing that I treat, and it's polycystic ovarian syndrome. And so that's where that mainly is from a high insulin. And so if you can naturally not consume so many things that spike your insulin, then you will actually have a better chance of lowering your polycystic ovarian syndrome hormone abnormality.
That is so good. They had, let's see, so magnesium, you can, and I know you mentioned Calm. I used to drink the Calm. You can find that. My father-in-law drinks that at night. Just put that into hot water. You can drink it cold as well. I now get one from Thrive Market. But I also love so there's different types of magnesium, right, Carey? So there's like magnesium comes in different forms. So the brand of the vitamin D and the magnesium and the different supplements I get from you, the brand, what is the brand I get?
I get mine from nutriscriptives.com, and you can order those online, but they come from a compounding pharmacy, so they're regulated. Vitamins are not regulated, and so sometimes you think you're getting a good quality vitamin and it can be mostly sugar and not really what it is. And so Nutriscriptives is where I get mine. And you can order and they'll ship to you, or we're located in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and you're always welcome to come in. You don't have to be my patient to get vitamins from us. So that's where vitamin D and magnesium. And whenever you take magnesium at night, you can still get up with a sleeping baby. So it's not going to knock you out. So that's important as well.
Yeah, that was good. Let me see. The other one, ashwagandha. What that is, Juice Plus is coming out with that in this spring. Is that safe? I'm not familiar with this yet. This is a new product that'll be coming out. Is it safe for women to take ashwagandha while they're pregnant or nursing or postpartum? Do you know? I'm not.
So it's a natural herb, so I would think so. I don't know the other ingredients off the top of my head. I think it was like lion mane and something like that. There was several other ingredients that we would have to look up in that particular product and see what it causes, but I would have to be 100% sure. I would look that up for you guys. Perfect. But it's a natural herb that usually whenever you talk about herbs, they're more okay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I know that there was another question about, you know, for women that are struggling to get pregnant. I know we touched on that. You touched on that just even with nutrition and things like that. Do you have any other recommendations, or before we get into a little bit more on the on supplementation, but and to hear from Emily and Aubrey specifically, any words just for those that are really struggling on pregnancy or to get pregnant?
Yeah, so that's where just kind of looking at your cycle and your diet and making sure that you're avoiding those high insulin foods, because that's going to naturally get your insulin down, which will then help regulate your ovary production. And then just looking at overall how often y'all are having sex and not doing it too much. And like we talked about a little bit there. And then just getting your vitamins correct. So you want to make sure you have, you know, the folic acid that you need so that you're good, your eggs are good and healthy. So I would just kind of look at overall, what are you doing to try? I had one patient once that was just having sex once a month and didn't understand that that wasn't enough. And so there's some things that you just don't think about because it's just like, oh, well, it'll just happen, because it does happen very easily for some people, but it's not always that easy. And don't get so fixated on it. I feel like sometimes you just want to be a mom so bad and you just want to get pregnant so bad that you're just consuming yourself with it. And so that's where not consuming yourself so much. Don't stress so much about it. It'll happen, and it'll happen all in the Lord's timing. And so that's where it's so important just to know that it's okay. And sometimes there's a functionality thing, and that's where looking at testing with your doctor, looking at your hormones, looking at the wiring inside of you, your anatomy is right, and that kind of thing. So there's a lot to play into it, but if you can kind of look at when you're ovulating first, that's the easiest go-to. And I did look up the ashwagandha, Tammy. So you cannot take that while breastfeeding. So that's one that you would not be able to take while breastfeeding. So that new product, we'll probably have to do a little bit more research. It might be a different type, but we'll need to look at that too. So
yeah. Okay, well, good. Well, you know what, that does answer too then about the getting pregnant, which I never even really, again, and these are topics, again, with Michelle, we can probably both agree, we didn't really talk about a lot of these things, maybe just girlfriend to girlfriend, but not really a lot out loud. But, how often I love that you really hit on that, allowing time for those things to build back up, and also for the woman. And so thank you. The apps, yeah, there is a saying, there's an app for that. So knowing for women, there's an app for that. I think that that's brilliant. So friends, I think you can agree, Carey is just brilliant. Do you see why I want to have everyone go to Carey? And so I will follow Carey wherever she goes. She better not move. I will follow her. But I am so thankful that she was able to share. I hope that she was able to answer your questions on this. And she hit on the topic of nutrition. And I hope you can hear her passion in that, as well as how much nutrition plays into this. And several years, for me, 22 years ago, for Michelle, 17 years ago, nutrition really played in for us, and knowing that we needed to make a difference in our families. And at that time, Emily was 7. Aubrey, for her, was, let's see, how old was Aubrey when you started, Michelle?
Around 12.
Around 12. So these girls were young. And I love that we made a decision for our families. And so Emily, if you'll share for just a couple minutes what this nutritional product, we chose Juice Plus because it is a foundation. It's just food. It has a nutrition label, and I'll go into that in just a second. For just a couple minutes, they put that into their bodies. Now, Emily, 22 years, Aubrey, 17 years, what it's done for you before, during, and after pregnancy now. And now these babies have this in their bodies. And now Sydney's got this little one growing inside of her. And several of you on here have Juice Plus babies as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hi. So I now have 2 Juice Plus babies. My first one is here in the room because she loves to be with mommy at all times. And that includes working out times. So I don't get any time to myself when I want to work out. Maybe sometimes, but, so yeah, Carey, thank you for all the information that you've shared. And, I've been learning a lot about postpartum hormones, especially with my second having, I have a 3-month-old little boy. And I always prided myself in knowing my body. And I feel like being pregnant and postpartum has completely messed that up. I just did not even recognize myself anymore. And especially with like the way that my brain was working, I would forget things like in the middle of sentences. And I I'm like, I don't even recognize myself. So I love learning more about just like how our bodies work, and just how to best regulate our hormones after postpartum. And I think my biggest thing with that has been just giving myself grace and peace, or giving myself grace and patience for the hormone regulation. Cause I think, especially with after having my second, I want to just like hop into being leveled and quickly, just uh, have all my hormones regulated already. But I have to keep reminding myself I'm only 3 months postpartum. There's still things like it took my body 9 months to create a baby. So I have to give myself time for my body to level out again. And especially with like not getting enough sleep at night and the cortisol levels and stuff. So just giving myself patience with that. But anyway, yes, I have 2 Juice Plus babies, and both of them I took Juice Plus when they were in the womb, and that just gave me such a peace of mind, especially with their growth when they're growing inside and getting that good nutrition. And then with afterwards, so with my second, I am not breastfeeding with my second, and that was a lot that went into that. But with that, I'm just so thankful that he at least got Juice Plus through my bloodstream and through me while I was pregnant with him. And then eventually I will put Juice Plus into his foods and stuff when he can start with that. And we did try to choose a good formula for him to go with the best that we could. And then with Chloe, she has been chewing on the capsules since forever, and eating the gummies. And now sometimes she will just not leave them alone until she eats 5 to 10 red capsules. And she can do that because it is just food. And it, sometimes I'm like, no, don't waste them, save them. Like I need these to last. But I'm like, that's not a battle that I'm wanting to, hill I want to die on, a battle I want to face. So I just let her eat 5 to 10 red capsules sometimes. Like it just is what it is, but it is just fruit. And so it's not medicine. It's something that she can just eat. And I try to give her good foods as a toddler. She's 3 now. And so I try to like, incorporate the fruits and the vegetables and all the things, but it's impossible. Like I know that it's just, I feel like for all of us, it's kind of impossible to get good nutrients into our body, even when we're really trying. Like America does not do a good job of making it easy for us to get good quality food and nutrients. And so that's why I can trust Juice Plus. I trust their research. I trust where they're getting their fruits and vegetables from. And so I know that I don't get enough, and I don't get enough for my kids, or my kids don't get enough either. So that's why we've chosen to take that every day. And I do feel like it works in those minuscule places of our bodies, and like helps us to get healthy and just stay like our immune system to stay healthy. And so like last week I had the flu, but I only had it for like 2 days. With a lot of Juice Plus and a lot of rest, I was able to kick that to the curb. So it's stuff like that that always gives me peace of mind, just being on Juice Plus. Yeah.
I love that. Yep. Just having that peace of mind. That's it. Just knowing that it's flowing through your blood. Thank you, Emily. And yes, Chloe does eat. And then she'll come over here and eat more capsules. So she's getting a lot of it. And let me tell you, she is one regular little girl. She poops a lot. So there you go. Aubrey, I tell you now, Henry's loving his little capsules, and he's eating all the Juice Plus as well. So it's so fun. And he gets it at home, and he gets it at Gigi's house. So it's so fun. And he's eating his shake mix too. And Chloe loves the shake mix, and soon Caleb will be getting this as well. So it's so fun because this is just food. And Carey's 2 boys, they're getting their gummies. And so it's so fun knowing that we have peace of mind as moms, as Mimi's, as Gigi's, that our kids can get it too. Aubrey, I'd love for you to share as well. how Juice Plus gives you peace of mind as a mama before, during, and after pregnancy.
Yeah, first, thank you so much, Carey. I have a whole list of notes already, and I am popping off in the chat with so many questions. But yes, and Emily, I totally agree. Peace of mind is probably the biggest thing that it has given me pre, during, post pregnancy. And as Emily, Tammy, Carey, my mom, any other moms on here that are giving their babies Juice Plus, it's a whole different, like, I've always loved Juice Plus, taking it for myself, but I would never give my baby something that I didn't know was so safe and so good for them. So it's like a whole new level of just trust and belief in this product, giving my baby it every single day. And so during during pregnancy, I believed it helped so much. I mean, if I could have every pregnancy and delivery and postpartum be like what I've experienced with Henry, I think I'd have a million kids. But um, it has just been a game changer. So during pregnancy, it was my sole prenatal. There's so many prenatals out there, and I didn't want to waste money on something that wasn't actually going to get to my baby in bloodstream. And I love that Juice Plus is proven to do that. I had complete trust in that. My OB even recommended and was an amener on just being like, this can be your only prenatal. Keep taking it. I doubled up second trimester and tripled up third trimester, and then I stayed doubled up. About my first probably 4 months of postpartum, I'm kind of back on just taking the regular dosage now. Unless we start to feel a little down, double up, like Emily said, the sickness kicks in and we fight it really quick with the Juice Plus. But yeah, so I had an amazing, praise the Lord, delivery and pregnancy with Henry. And I contribute that to Juice Plus. And since we're just being like really honest and open on this call, I always feared that, I just had this fear that it would maybe be really hard to conceive one day with just being on birth control for so long. And mainly because of God, he gave us our sweet little baby boy, and I'm so thankful. But I also have to attest to just my husband being on Juice Plus for 20 something years too. I mean, he's half of getting pregnant, and half of my baby's, genes and everything, and him having that in his body for so long and giving that gift to me is awesome. So if you're a mom on here, also just get your husbands on Juice Plus too. And then postpartum has been I think a game changer as well, because you are so tired and you're stressed, tired. It's hard to get any food in you, yet alone good food. And so just knowing that am able to flood my body with the nutrition that Carey was talking about, and I just love that a lot of those things that she was saying that I wrote down that are good for postpartum depression and sleep and all the things, hormones, are in our Juice Plus, like, amazing, because that is so easy to take. So I'm so thankful for that. And just love that too, that there is a whole study done on Juice Plus and pregnancy. I mean, there's not many things that you can find a study done on pregnant women, because that's such a sensitive group of people that you don't really want to test things on. And so the fact that there was that study done also gave me peace of mind to take Juice Plus as my sole prenatal. I loved that there was, 0% preeclampsia, 0% birth weight under 5.5 pounds, 0% of the people, our babies were admitted to the NICU, 0% respiratory distress. That was just in that study, but like, wow, huge. And I did undergo a C-section because little Henry was breech. That was not in my plan, but it was in God's plan. And that is a whole nother recovery that I did not expect to have, and cannot thank just the nutrition I was able to get during that period of time, to help me recover. And I would do it all over again, and hopefully plan to do that one day, to do it all over again. But and I just, yeah, it has helped so much. My sleep, the omegas and magnesium combo at night, so good. I had bad restless leg while pregnant. That was my biggest, biggest issue while pregnant. I hated my restless leg, but the magnesium and omegas at night helped me sleep. So that was huge. And I just can't, I mean, I love it so much, and I love it even more having gone through pregnancy and feeding it to Henry every day. He loves it. Just so thankful. So thank you so much.
I love that. I know, as you can tell, we are a little passionate about our fruits and vegetables. And now that Carey's mentioned these other things as well. And I will say, when Emily and Chad did start to get really serious, I remember having that conversation with Chad. And I said, well, if you are going to get really serious with Emily, I have a serious question for you. You have to start taking Juice Plus. Will you start taking Juice Plus? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, great. So then if you're going to get engaged, like this is like a non-negotiable. You have to take Juice Plus if you're going to become a part of our family. So just to close up, Carey, thank you so very much. Juice Plus is literally just, now he sets it out and reminds them, his family. That's what I love. Juice Plus is literally just fruits and vegetables. It is the foundation. It is the foundation of your nutrition. So everything else that Carey mentioned, these are the things that are going to be, added on. And so a lot of the things that she talked about is in your foundation. And like Emily and Aubrey mentioned, it's really hard as mamas. I'm going to tell you, Michelle and I can both tell you too, now that we're on this side of things, it's still hard as we're busy Mimis and Gigi's, and Carey can tell you too, as a busy professional, you're running here and there and trying to help other people in their lives. It's really hard to try to still be able to get all of that in a daily regimen. So I'm so thankful that I have this, that I can every single day, I have the ability to bridge that gap. So I start out my day every single morning with that, with my water, and then I have peace of mind knowing that that's flowing through my blood every day. Then whatever I get on top of that is just the additional. And I drink my shake, so I have the fiber, I have that good fiber that we talked about, and then having that calcium, that magnesium, and we can make sure that you get the actual things that Carey talked about. So if this is not part of your regimen every day and you would like to get that, please get with Aubrey or Emily. They can make sure that you can add this into your regimen, and we'll make sure that you get what Carey talked about. If you want to add that vitamin D and get the brand that she talked about. If you have any additional questions for Carey, please make sure that you let Emily or Aubrey know. Carey, we cannot thank you enough for your knowledge. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Girls, are there any questions? You can unmute. This is definitely, we went a little bit over. I know we went a whole hour, but coffee chat. Carey, any last words?
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm very passionate about hormones, and so that's where it's so important that the entire adulthood is so important for hormones, whether it's you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 70s. So that's where it's so important to have that balance, and just talking about it is so big. So thank you guys again for having me this morning.
It's awesome. Anybody else have any last words? Anything? Okay. Ladies, thank you so much. Have a beautiful weekend. Emily, Aubrey, thank you for sharing your stories. Michelle, thanks for joining us this morning. Hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And, this is just a journey. I'm so thankful that you're learning now. I know Michelle feels the same, that we knew than what you all are learning now. So best to you all. Carey, so appreciative. Thank you. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, all you mamas.
Bye. Thank you.